Welcome to our view on public safety. My name is Richard Aguiar. I am the Director of Fall River Emergency Management and the Deputy Chief of the Fire Department Special Service Unit. Today we have three guests. They're members of the Red Cross, and they're going to speak about the various jobs, what they do for the Red Cross. We have Mark McLaughlin right here. He does the fire disaster stuff when we respond to fires. Laura Rosenthal, Community Education, and Stephen Bryant, the HFC, acronyms for Home Fire Campaign. Mm-hmm. So we're going to start off with Mark, because I deal with Mark quite often when we go to fires and stuff. And Mark is kind of my right-hand guy. So I'm going to let him explain exactly what he does when he responds to a fire.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks for having us on the show today. So as Rick said, we work close together. When Rick receives a fire in the city, he'll make a phone call when he discovers that some people are displaced from their homes. So he'll place a call to the Red Cross, and then we assemble a team to go out to the fire scene. And I'm on that team that meets with Rick, finds out who the displaced people are, and then the Red Cross opens up a case and helps those people that are displaced from their homes. And then we stay with them. The Red Cross opens up a case and stays with them through the process as they recover to get back, their pieces together and get back to their living quarters and things like that.
So one thing I can say, as a Deputy Chief of Special Services, I deal with the Red Cross on a professional basis, and they do a great job. And particularly when you have families that's displaced, they're there right away. And one thing I want to emphasize as well, that they're all volunteers. The Red Cross is all volunteers. You do have paid staff, but Mark's crew, they respond to fires, and I don't care if it's 10 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning, they respond. They receive no pay for this, and they do a great job. So some of the things, Mark, what would you actually give these people and do to help them besides explain the voucher system?
Sure. So every case is different. If people are displaced from their homes, some of them have family and friends that they can stay with. Some of them would need a hotel. Some people have pets. Some people have more damage to their location. Some people would need replacement clothing, food, accommodations for the pets. And some people need an empathetic ear or somebody to help them with their first steps. So when we get on the scene, we speak to these people individually and figure out what their immediate needs are so that we can address that. And the Red Cross can address them on the scene with sometimes financial assistance and resources for things like housing, clothing, or whatever the need is. And if the Red Cross can't provide that assistance, they can provide a conduit to other charitable organizations that can assist them with either, like I said before, replacement housing, clothing, things like that, and also medication, eyeglass, if that's the issue, a whole host of things that could happen when you're all of a sudden displaced from your home. We could learn about their immediate needs and then address them through ourselves or through other agencies.
So one thing that, as you know, that we're confronted with is people with animals. And a lot of hotels will not take animals.
Right.
And it becomes a problem, not only for me, but for the Red Cross, because I think when you have an animal, people don't want to leave their animals. They love their animals more than they love their spouses, some of them. and it's like, fortunately now, some of the local hotels will take an animal, but they charge an extraordinary fee for the animal to stay with them. And in the past, what we have done, we have sheltered animals in our shelter at the police shelter down on North Main Street. But tell me a little about that. How do you deal with the animals, Mark, if we don't have our facilities in Fall River?
Sure. So sometimes when that happens, we talk through it with these families. A lot of the times that there's other relatives or friends who are able to take the animal in for a short amount of time. And that gives us time to figure out if there's other animal shelters that can take the pet or help them. In some communities, there is animal control will come and address the situation, and they'll have resources on board to assist. But I guess what I could say to that besides this is maybe this is an opportunity to send the message out that this is something to prepare for. In your day-to-day life, you have a crate or an extra leash, or establish something so that if in the event something happens, you, the unfortunate victim of the fire, maybe has a plan in place for that pet. So we do the best to talk through it and find resources on the fly sometimes, but that's how we address it.
Yeah, before I move on, I just, when the Red Cross responds to fires, I think the displaced families think that the Red Cross is going to give them everything. One important thing to have, and I can't emphasize this enough, have apartment insurance, because it's not a lot of money, and when you have a fire, if you already had a fire, you lose everything, and the Red Cross is not going to replace all your items, and that's a misconception that I always get. They're going to help us with everything. No, they're going to help you at that particular moment, and your landlord will help you as well, but you have to have your contents insured, and I can't emphasize that more. So let's move on now to talking about fires prevention. We're going to move on to the home fire campaign, and Stephen is going to talk about that. What that program is all about. That's a good program to get involved with, and he can explain to you how it works and how to contact him, and even if you need something. Go ahead, Stephen.
Sure, thank you very much, Rick. So, an important thing for your listeners to keep in mind that if they have a fire in their home, and it happens in the middle of the night, they may only have 2 minutes to escape, and I'm sure you've seen that and experienced that, but people find that hard to grasp. But that's very little time, and one of the things that can help people get out and be safe are working smoke detectors. Now, the Red Cross started this program in 2014 to help people take a look at these smoke detectors, and if necessary, to install smoke detectors and install carbon monoxide detectors. Since the program started, the Red Cross has determined that they've saved 1,331 lives. Now that's how many lives they've saved, but think about how many injuries they have avoided, trauma that they have avoided. So as they say, every second counts when a fire takes place. So what the Red Cross will do, if requested by, and this is an important thing to keep in mind, it doesn't have to be a homeowner. If you rent and you're in an apartment, we will come in, we'll look at your smoke detectors, and we'll test them, and we will install up to 3 smoke detectors and a carbon monoxide detector if it's determined that that's needed. And the best thing about it is that for anyone, they can remember the cost. It's exactly $0. The Red Cross will do this at no charge. And when we come in and we do that, and when we take a look at the smoke detectors, and determine if we can install 1, 2, or 3 to make the home, the residence, safer. We also, at the same time, sit down with the residents, and this is a lesson that I learned from talking to people in the Red Cross, is that even if you have working smoke detectors, if you have children in your home, don't assume that your children are going to exit the building when they hear a smoke detector go off. Young children may hide under the bed or hide in the closet. So what we do is discuss the concept of a home fire drill. Just like your children have a fire drill in school, at home it's important for a family to say, 1, let the children know what they need to do when it happens, and have an escape plan. Now, I'd ask you listeners to think about their homes. If a fire alarm goes off in the middle of the night, how is each person going to most safely exit the home? And then finally, where are they going to go? So important to find a place to meet outside the home. Many times, and again, I'm sure you've seen this, where a fire takes place, 2 people exit out the back door, 2 people exit out the front door, and you don't know whether everyone's safe. So it's so important for the peace of mind and for the safety of the family and the safety of the public safety responders who come to know that everyone is out of the house, and don't forget your pets.
Yeah. Accountability is very important. The other thing you just mentioned, ways of egress. And we on the fire side come across egress where people have a back stairway going down the house and they have it cluttered with stuff. So that's one way of egress that sometimes they can't get out, and they have to keep those hallways clean. And you know, speaking about on the fire side as well, accountability, when people vacate their homes, they're all over the place. You have to vacate, go to one area so we know where you are and we can account for you. And this is how we do the fire report that we hand over to the Red Cross as well. So we know all the names, we know the children, the animals, so forth, so on, every floor, and we have that listed on our fire report. Sometimes it makes it very difficult if we can't find people because they leave, or people have just out of panic, they get in their car and they take off. And now we're wondering, where are these people? So it's very important, like Steve mentioned, accountability. Go to one area so we know where you are. And the other thing is, once again, not to be repetitious, but always have your way of egress. Like Steve mentioned, very important to get out of your property, particularly if you live on a 3rd floor of a residence, or if you live in a multi-family home, you need to have a way of egress. So the other question, Steve, that I'm going to have for you is, how do they contact you for this service?
Well, I'm glad you asked.
Yep.
Now again, we kept the price simple. We're going to keep the contact simple. So I'll give you telephone number. Right? It is 1-800-564-1234. And you leave your basic information. We'll get back in contact with you, and we will make arrangements at a time that's convenient for you for 2 or 3 Red Cross volunteers to come out and do the inspection, the installation, and again, sort of a review of again how you would exit your home. And one other thing we add to that is we do ask people to think about, do they have risks in their home, such as we remind people if they cook in the kitchen.
Right.
Say, don't leave the kitchen. Most common source of fires is the kitchen. So again, 1-800-564-1234. You call, leave the basic information, and we will get back to you and set up an appointment.
Good. So I know you've worked with Fall River Fire in the past. Mark has, installing these. How has other fire departments welcome this program? Do you have any resistance, or they welcome you open arms?
So I can speak to that.
Please.
So in the past, every community has different programs. Some with the Council on Aging, so some with some specifics on who would get a fire detector installed. Some communities will just go in and take sign-ups like Steve has mentioned, or we'll set up a community day and partner with, like we've done in Fall River here, and have a kind of like a rally and go with some sign-ups and door-to-door and partner it. So it varies throughout the Plymouth and Bristol counties on what fire departments do, but some of them will take a supply and they will have a crew to go out and install in their community.
Oh, good.
And then Steve would record their findings and then replenish them with the equipment.
Oh, good. So it's a good service for the public. So we're going to move on to Laura Rosenthal now. Laura is the lead on the Pedro program.
The preparedness program.
Yep,
Yes.
and she's going to speak to that and what that's about, because I certainly will have an education on that, because I'm not familiar with that program.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to be here. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
And I think that the whole concept, the whole theory is be prepared. And we go into schools, and our first one we'll talk about is the Pillowcase Project. And that came out of Katrina, when the college students needed to leave quickly, and they took a pillowcase and they stuffed things in for it. So it's a great program. It's for 3rd to 5th graders, and we'll go into schools. I've worked with scouting groups. I've worked at YMCA, YW, any community organization, and we're empowering children to bring whatever we teach them home to their family. And so we're teaching them about coping skills, what are the hazards in your home, and especially what you talked about, having a plan and reviewing that plan. And so again, bringing it home and sharing it with the family or their grown-ups, and where are we going to meet? The big tree, the swing set in the back, wherever it is. But that's exactly what we're trying to instill, is having a plan, being prepared, and where are we going to meet? And so by filling the pillowcase in the classroom or wherever we're with the essentials, what do we need? Especially that special thing that you want to take. And we talk about, you can't put your cat or your dog in there. Leave it to the fire department. They will get that for you, so don't run after it. But having the essentials that they need, because they might be in a shelter set up by the Red Cross or at another family's home. So it's all about preparing and being comfortable with emergencies and understanding what an emergency is.
How about, when we see even adults, kids as well, very distraught when they have a fire and they lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
And to see some of these young kids going into their adult ages and they're looking and they go back into their property and everything is wet, ruined, smoked, because if we can, we allow them to go back in to get some of their items to take out. Do we have a program for that through the Red Cross to treat trauma and?
Absolutely, and it's interesting. In addition to preparedness, I'm actually the duty officer, so we might have spoken.
We may
when
have.
When there's a fire, I get the call. I reach out to who's ever on or volunteering that day, and we put the team together. So I'm conducting, if you will, and this is all over the state. And then I'm also on our recovery and casework team as a supervisor. So I deal with people sometimes at the very beginning when there is a fire, and I'm calling them and helping them understand what are the steps, and then after the effect. And we do have a DMH team, disaster mental health, and disaster health services for those eyeglasses and medications. But absolutely, this is a traumatic event. And so it's important that they get care.
I think people, when they refer to the Red Cross, they say, oh, they just do blood stuff.
Exactly.
I know they work for the blood and they draw blood, all that other stuff. And then they work at major disasters. They don't understand what you do on a local level. And I think that's very important on a local level, particularly, what Mark does and what you do, calling your team in and stuff, and what Steve does with, the smoke detectors and carbon monoxide. It's reaching out to the community, local community. It's not, national stuff like we always see when there's a major disaster.
Right.
And people have the concept of the Red Cross where they don't understand that. And I've always been an advocate for the Red Cross, as Mark knows, and locally. And I think it's very important that people understand what you guys do. And this is why I wanted to have you on my program to explain to the people. The Red Cross is not just about blood drives, and it's not just about, natural disasters. That all is great as well. But it's the stuff that people don't see that you actually do. And I always get a kick out of Mark, because when he goes to a fire, he makes sure he gets those Red Cross blankets out, and Red Cross puts it around the people. And in our rehab stuff that we do, we have the blankets as well. Matter of fact, I robbed some of the blankets from Mark, I think, one time. Funny story, we had a rehab, we had a fire most recently, and we had a bucket out, and we had towels in the bucket, right? And so the bucket has a big Red Cross on it for the Red Cross. And the back of it has some description of what was in that bucket. That was the disaster cleaning buckets that they gave out quite a few years ago. Okay. So Mark turns the bucket around and he faces it towards the street. He said, now this is the way this should be. So Mark is always an advocate for the Red Cross,
So I'm proud of the
advertising
logo.
for the Red Cross as well.
I'm proud of the logo. But to your point, Rick,
What do you mean, I love it? It's the truth.
there's people don't realize on these small events, there's been 151 this year already, this calendar year,
Yeah.
and in 21 alone in the city of Fall River. So we are out there day to day.
Yeah, and
Counting up those numbers.
people just don't realize, and like I say, when the COVID thing was going on, of course, the Red Cross was not responding because due to restrictions, and I kind of felt that the people lost that because the people lost that face-to-face communication with the Red Cross. And I always thought, because we handled it, and we would send the stuff to Mark or Ron or whoever it may have been via, email, computer. And I would, face-to-face with the people. But for some reason, when the Red Cross responds and they see your vest on and they see you there, it's almost like a relief that there's someone there to help them. Mm-hmm. And for the 2 years when Red Cross didn't respond, it was kind of, people did not understand when I explained to them what was happening. They didn't totally get it. But once they saw the Red Cross coming once again, they felt relaxed. And very important for people. People like tangibility. They like to be face-to-face.
Absolutely.
And when you start doing this, particularly when you deal with old people, when you start doing computer stuff, and they're not into that stuff. But when the Red Cross is there and they can speak to you face-to-face, and Mark helps them with his kind words and around his tenderness, which they're great assets for the Red Cross, it's much appreciated because I think the people really understand more what happens when they get displaced.
Yeah. And it was different. Through the pandemic, it's not that we didn't respond. We responded virtually, and we weren't on scene. So you're right, that face of the Red Cross kind of took it a different approach. And so the volunteer base had a lot of strategy discussions on how to get that empathetic, listening ear, helpful, humanitarian effort out through the phone as best we could, and then help them. And we had a program where, after the fact, runners would come out to the scene and address that. But the casework, like you said, would be done, over the phone. And sometimes that's a learning lesson. So, the preferred method now is we're back going to the scene and visiting and seeing the people and helping them firsthand. And we see that relief, and we see it. I think when the Red Cross comes, I think some of the firefighters know that it's kind of towards the end. So that I think somehow that helps them time frame, maybe it's almost time to roll up the hoses.
But it's funny because once I get to a fire, I automatically assess the situation. We have displaced families, we're going to have them or not, and I make the call right away. And the incident commander usually is the battalion chief. He'll always say to me, "Chief, how do you get these people here so fast?" I said, "Because I don't procrastinate, number one, and I have an inside connection." I have an and if I have to, I'll call Paul directly and say, "Hey, this is what I have," and sometimes I always call the 800 number, and then after that I'll call Mark and Rhonda because they live in Fall River. We have this, and they move right away. And I guess it's good to have that rapport and that relationship with people because they're there when we need them. Except when they go on vacation, then I say to myself, "Now what am I going to do?"
And there's our goal is like a 2-hour response time.
Yeah.
So from the time you call into the Red Cross and dispatch, and then I ask you a lot of times, "Did you call the Red Cross?" Because I can't self-dispatch without the duty officers knowing that we got a team out there. So we have a great relationship. My wife and I are in the city, and we respond, in both counties, Plymouth and Bristol. But when there's a Fall River run, if we're around, we're probably going to go if we can.
Yeah.
So.
Laura, anything else you want to add to your program? Or?
Well, I discussed the Pillowcase Project.
Yep.
Then there's also Prepare with Pedro.
Okay.
Where we work with kids in kindergarten through 2nd grade, and they're following Pedro the Penguin, and again, for their level, learning how to prepare and take action, and discussing same types of things, more sounds related. The fire. Detection in your home, beep beep, and it's a great little story. And all the kids, and they get a little workbook, and so there's more coloring and interactive and bringing it home to their grown-ups, which is great.
Yeah, the little kids, they seem to be more focused on certain things when you refer to that, and they can understand that when you do little coloring books and stuff.
Absolutely. So we've covered. As of 2015, Prepare with Pedro, we did 50,000, but wow. That's gone up quite a bit. And this is a record from 2013, over 1.4 million with the Pillowcase Project.
Oh, wow.
And then we also have For an elderly, I've done some work with the COA, Council on Aging, in different areas, and bringing, because they have a whole set of different needs when they're preparing. Medications for sure, how to get out safely, where will they go? So it's all about being prepared so that you don't panic when you're in the situation.
And I think that's what's important, not to panic, because you have to stay calm. And we do have programs for the elderly in our high rises. We have fire drills, so forth, and stuff. Anything else on your behalf?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think I covered it, unless there are more questions.
Stephen, how are you?
And I would, I'm sure you would agree with me, encourage anyone who's listening, test your smoke detectors every month. Test them.
Yep.
They may look fine, but smoke detector has a test button on it. Press it, it's loud, and you can serve two purposes with it. One, you can make sure that it works, and two, if you have young people in the home, you can say to them, I want you to listen to this, and what is our fire drill? What are we going to do when you hear this sound in the middle of the night? Very, very important.
Very important. Mark, before we wrap it up, anything?
Yeah, I guess just the overall, overarching theme is just prepare. Prepare for what we hope never happens, but it's good to have little reminders every once in a while. So if it does, then it would trigger that memory, and then you can automatically respond in an appropriate manner.
So before I wrap it up, Steve, he gave you that number. If you want to get to his program, just give him a call. And I would like to thank Laura for coming, Steve, and my good friend Mark. I may see Mark, we never know in our business, but I hope to see you as well again. And thank you for coming on to the show.
Thank you very
you.
much.
That wraps our show up for this week. Thank you very much.